Welcome to Algebra 1, Semester 1, Unit 2, Section 6.3. Okay, now we're going to solve inequalities. They're solved very much like the equalities, just a slight variation in our properties and things. So first thing we would do is clear the parenthesis by distributive property. So we say distributive property. We take 7 times g as 7g. 7 times negative 3 is a negative 21. Is greater than or equal to negative 13. Now we draw our line, circle our creepy dude, and we say we want to add or subtract first to get him by himself. So we see there's a minus 21. To get rid of that, it would be a plus 21. So it's addition property of, this time, inequality. Okay. Now we get 7g is greater than or equal to 21 minus 13 would be 7. And it's positive because 21 is farther from 0. And 21 was positive. Now we have 7 times g. To get rid of a times, we divide. Divide by 7, so we get g is greater than or equal to 1. And that was the division property of inequality. Okay, so our last step here is to graph. Anytime you have an inequality, I ask you to graph it to show what it means. If you've put your variable on the left-hand side, the graph will match the arrow tip that you see right there, that greater than symbol. So you can just bring that symbol down, attach a line to it, and now you need to decide open or close circle. If there's a line underneath that inequality, it means the circle is closed. Now take that number and write it underneath, and you're done graphing. In this problem, the first thing that we would do is distribute. So we get a negative 1/4 p. Negative 1/4 times negative 12. You might need to do off to the side here. Negative 1/4 times negative 12, and that would be 12 over 1. Would end up being a negative times a negative is positive. 12 over 4. 1 times 12 is 12, 4 times 1 is 4. 12 over 4 is equal to 3, so it's a plus 3 is greater than negative 2. So our first step there was distributive property. Now we draw the line. We've got the creepy dude on one side. Trying to get him alone. We look to add or subtract first. We would not add 1/4 because 1/4 is being multiplied. It's sitting right next to it. But the 3 is being added to the p, so we subtract 3. We get negative 1/4 p is greater than negative 5. Now, that was the subtraction property of inequality. Now, in order to get the p by itself, it's easiest when we see that we're multiplying by a fraction to simply multiply by the reciprocal, because that truly is dividing by that fraction. We do need to make sure that we're multiplying with the same sign as what's there. So it's a negative 1/4 times p. We need to multiply by, I'm sorry, I said reciprocal, but I wrote the same thing. So it's negative 4 over 1. That way it can reduce. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other, so we have to switch this to negative 4 over 1. So this reduces, 4 goes in there once, 4 goes in there once. A negative times a negative is positive, so it becomes just simply p, or 1p. Negative times a negative is positive. and that's 5 over 1. 5 times 4 is 20. Now, there's one thing that you need to make sure and do. If you ever divide or multiply by a negative on each side, when you do the multiplication property of inequalities, if it happens to be a negative number that you're multiplying on each side, you flip this inequality around. So, we have multiplication property of inequality, and that was our last step there. Okay, come down to our graph. The arrow tip's going this way, so we draw it that way. It is an open circle because there's no line underneath, and our number is 20. That's how you would graph that. Next problem, we need to clear the parentheses. So we have 5m plus 5 is less than 5m plus 17. Now we need to get all of the, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't distribute that 5 times 5, so it's 5 times m is 5m, 5 times 5 should be 25. Okay? So our first step there was distributive property. Now we need to gather the m's on the left-hand side. It is an inequality. I require you to bring them to the left. So we subtract 5m to get rid of them over here. Line it up with the m's on that side. And what we find is something rather unique. 5m minus 5m wipes out. 5m minus 5m wipes out. We no longer have any variables. All the creepy dudes are gone, and we're sitting with an inequality that is not true. So what that means is no matter what number you plugged in there for m, this would never come out true. So our property that we used there was we subtracted 5m from each side. So it's subtraction property of inequality. But then the last thing that we need to make sure and mark is down near the graph, we need to say there's no solution. There is no value that will make that true. Next problem, we need to distribute, so we're going to have distributive property. So we have 1 minus 8d is less than, this should be a d, that's a typo. Okay, is less than negative 8d. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Our next step is to gather the d's on one side, so we add 8d to each side. And again, our unique situation comes up where we've wiped out all of our variables. That was the addition property of inequality. We have 1 is less than 4. This time, that happens to be true. So our answer is infinitely many solutions. Or you can just write infinite. Either way, it tells me that no matter what you plug in there, it will always be true. And that is the end of Algebra 1, Semester 1, Section 6.3. Thank you very much.